Live from Toledo, 13 Action News starts now.
Multiple states are considering redrawing their congressional maps to give one party or another a bigger political advantage. That's despite the fact that mid-decade redistricting is rare, and sometimes redistricting turns into gerrymandering. That is our big story today.
It's an ugly form of politics, whoever does it, and it's not one in which the voters generally win.
You will find that both political parties gerrymander districts to try and give them a leg up over the other. But this national conversation playing out right now typically happens at the beginning of each decade, not in the middle. Traditionally, the process of redrawing congressional district boundaries only happens every 10 years following the completion of each census. The whole point is to make sure each member of the U.S. House of Representatives in a state represents the same number of people. Because populations shift over time, districts need redrawn in order to maintain a balance. The Constitution requires a census to be completed every 10 years, giving us the data to know how many seats each state will receive in the House of Representatives. States then use that population data to redraw maps at the start of each decade. But there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution or federal law that prevents states from redrawing maps in the middle of the decade. That's what we're seeing play out right now in Texas. The White House has been pushing Texas and other red states to redraw their maps ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. The end goal is to make sure Republicans hold on to their narrow majority in the House. Republicans control the legislature in Texas and therefore have power over this redistricting process. Their proposal could give the GOP an additional 5 seats in the state.
In that map, more than 1/3 of Texans, more than 10 million people, will be in a new congressional district.
Ahead of an expected vote on that new congressional map earlier this month, dozens of Democratic lawmakers left Texas because without their presence in the legislature, their session can't start and Republicans can't call a vote on their maps. Earlier this week, the Texas House Speaker vowed to not go away until Democrats come back.
I spoke with Governor Abbott this morning, and he has made it clear he is committed to calling us back again and again and again until our work is done.
This week, Democrats in Texas set conditions for their return to their home state. They want Texas Republicans to end the legislative special session, which happened today. Another special session is expected to start Monday when Democrats are anticipated to return. Another condition of Democrats' return to Texas, they want California Democrats to release their own new map. The Democrats in that state say will offset any GOP gains made in Texas. Now, after Texas Republicans debuted their map, California Democrats vowed to fight back and redraw their own map that already gives Democrats a 43-9 advantage in the state. California's legislature plans to meet Monday to consider their own redistricting plan. It would have to pass both chambers with a 2/3 vote, but then it would head to the ballot for citizens to decide whether to adopt the map. Governor Gavin Newsom said Thursday, quote, "We have to meet fire with fire."
We're putting the maps on the ballot and we're giving the power to the people. But we're asking the voters for their consent to do midterm redistricting in 2026, 2028, and 2030 for the congressional maps to respond to what's happening in Texas, to respond what Trump is trying to excite.
California isn't the only state where Democrats are vowing to fight back.
All's fair in love and war. That's why I'm exploring with our leaders every option to redraw our state congressional lines as soon as possible. This is a war. We are at war. And that's why the gloves are off, and I say, bring it on.
Now, experts wonder if this is just the beginning of a bigger battle over maps in states across the country, blue and red. One expert says if Texas backs off, others may follow suit.
And it's basically like a nuclear arms race of redistricting or gerrymandering. And it was all started with Texas and kind of like the Cold War. If Texas pulls back, I think the Democrats in these states, other states, and the Republicans in those states will probably pull back.
But there's just one state in the country legally required to redraw its congressional map this year, and it's Ohio. That's because this map that was in place for the last 2 elections we voted in was not adopted with bipartisan support, and because of that, it was only allowed to last for 2 election cycles, or last 4 years. This all goes back to the 2010s, when Ohio voters approved a pair of constitutional amendments aimed at creating a bipartisan redistricting process. It still gives politicians the responsibility of drawing state house and congressional district maps, but the process was meant to encourage them to work in a bipartisan fashion to try and avoid gerrymandering. Maps that are not bipartisan cannot last the entire decade. Ohio voters rejected another amendment last year that would have created an independent panel to draw district boundaries. When the map debuted, Ohio's 4-3 conservative majority Supreme Court struck it down as unconstitutional, but federal courts allowed it to be used for the last 2 election cycles. This time, though, the state's high court is dominated by Republicans who hold a 6-1 majority on the bench. That could make it easier for Republicans to survive potential legal challenges to their map. Now, this is Ohio's current congressional map. It gives Republicans a 10-5 majority in the U.S. House. There are 2 safe Democratic districts in the dark blue on the map in Columbus and Cleveland, though Democrats won all 3 competitive elections in 2024, including in Northwest Ohio with Toledo's Marcy Kaptur. Ohio's 9th congressional district here is perhaps the most competitive seat in Ohio. And it's one that Republicans could target during this upcoming redistricting cycle as they look to retire Kaptur, who's the longest serving woman in the history of Congress. Here's the timeline for Ohio's congressional redistricting process that is upcoming. The legislature has the first chance to draw a map. It has until September 30th to do so, and it has to pass with a 3/5 majority vote in the House and Senate with support from at least half of the legislature's Democrats. If that doesn't happen, the 7-member Redistricting Commission takes over, and it has to adopt a bipartisan plan by the end of October. If the commission fails, the ball goes back over to the legislature's court. It has to pass a map by a deadline of November 30th. But this time around, it would only need a simple majority vote. Does not need Democratic support. And if it does not get it, the map could only last for 4 years. This mid-year redistricting drama matters because it could determine which party controls the House of Representatives for the final 2 years of President Trump's term. Look at how narrow the Republican majority currently is. And in midterm elections, historically, the party in the White House loses seats in the House, raising the stakes for next year's election and showing us why this arms race is happening in the middle of the decade.